students, there's a cheat sheet on the left side of the board, just in case you don't forget.
Hi, I'm Margaret. I'm a rising senior at Lowell, and my starter project was a theremin, and my main project was a robotic spider that avoids obstacles. So for the starter project, the theremin basically just makes noise based on the distance that your hand is from it. Pretty annoying, but it can detect the distance using the antenna, and then that goes through here to the piezoelectric generator, which turns the voltage, which the voltage depends on here, and then that changes to a different pitch or frequency of sound from the vibrations in here. So, yeah. And then for my main project, this spider will walk forward, and then if it detects an obstacle, it backs up and turns. So how this works is that the ultrasonic sensors send out the ultrasonic sound waves, and then based on how long it takes for it to hear the echo back, it can convert that to a distance, or the Arduino can convert that to a distance based on the speed of sound. And then from that, the Arduino can decide using the program whether it should proceed forward or if it should go back. And then it sends a signal to the pins, which then connect to the motor. And there's also a component called an H-bridge, which allows one of the motors, which controls both forward and backward motion, to go in two directions, because there needs to be quite a few different pins and inputs and outputs in order for that to work, for it to be able to be reversed. So some of the problems I had was that based on the online tutorial that I was using as a reference, I was supposed to take an integrated circuit and basically reverse engineer it to take off one of the surface mounted components and solder on some different things, which was very difficult, and it was a very small little chip, and there were these tiny little pieces, and I ended up kind of burning some things. So then when I put it all together, it wasn't working, and it was going left when it should have gone straight, and it was spinning in circles and doing all this crazy stuff. And at a certain point, I realized that that wasn't going to work, and I didn't really have anything to lose, so I just took out the entire circuit board that came with this and tried to connect the Arduino directly to the motor, which then worked a lot better. So I modified my code and got the H-bridge, which also took a while to get, and that worked pretty well. I also burnt one of the motors, which meant I needed to get a new spider, which had two motors. But that was pretty easy to fix once I got the new spider. And then I guess the other problem I had was that the spider can't carry a lot of weight, so I had trouble finding a battery that could supply enough power and wouldn't make the spider stall. So if I put the battery on this, it kind of like doesn't really work. Alright, now it's working. But trust me, it just kind of makes weird buzzing noises. So basically my solution for now is to get it to drag behind it, and eventually I would put wheels on it so it would be a little smoother. There are a few other steps which I want to take in the future, which is to get this other sensor. This is a line sensor which uses infrared, and using that sensing the reflection of infrared light and how much, or infrared waves, and how much is reflected back. It can tell what color something is, and then it inputs that as a value to the Arduino. So that is the next step. So it can sense a line and follow left line, and then turn until it finds more line. And overall in that program, I think I really learned how it kind of works through some things. I had to do a lot of troubleshooting because sometimes things just wouldn't work, and I'd have to figure out what exactly the problem was and going back to those like individual components. And then also just kind of when to change my plan a little bit and do it differently, find a different way to get around the problem, like I did when I took out the circuit board. And I've really enjoyed the program.
Questions?
Did you try working on the modification?
Yeah, I have started working on the modifications, but because it would take significantly more work in order to get it to turn in both directions than it would to just make it turn left, which is what it does currently, that leads to a problem if this kind of gets a little bit off center just because the wires are a little bit flimsy. Then it'll end up sometimes like it'll wave a little bit and then it'll be over to the left side of the line, and then it'll keep turning because it doesn't see the line, and then of course the next line it sees is when it's facing the opposite direction, and then it's just going back on itself. So I think the next step for that would be to make this less clumsy. Yeah.
What size battery does it need?
This is a 9-volt battery. But, some of the other things I tried were like using lots of AAA batteries or like little coin batteries, but those weren't working and weren't actually supplying the voltage that they should have, so they didn't work.
What was your modification?
My modification was this light sensor. So it senses a line, and if it sees a line, it goes forward. If it doesn't, it searches for a line. If it's a black line on the surface.
What is an H-bridge?
The H-bridge is basically the component that allows the motor to run forward and backwards. So it has, if it gets an input from one side of it, then it'll give one output, and then when it goes through the motor, then it'll go back to a certain ground pin. And if it gets an input from the other one, then it'll go back around to the other one. And so that way, instead of it just being able to have the current go through in one direction, it can go both.